So right now we go to the next stage, which is Impuls intro, and I invite our colleague Joost Heinsius to come to the stage. So he's going to be our moderator for the next session and introduce the speakers.
Thanks to Bravka. Yeah. Okay, Lisa, yeah, just sit down already. For the next part, for the Impuls part, we're looking at two sides of strengthening of the coin of strengthening ecosystem of the CCS. We have been talking a lot about resilience, also in terms of bouncing back, but we all know that bouncing back to normal will not be completely the case. Yeah, and then I'm just sitting next to you, which is better. I'm very comfortable. But also that we need to bounce forward. And bounce forward means that we not can do the same as we ever did, but also in the sense of going through a transformation of the CCS ecosystem, especially want to play a role in the future of society. Now, the first presentation will be, unfortunately, online. It was supposed to be physically here, but unfortunately, COVID is still there. I would call it an enabler. It's about fair practice in the working conditions of the CCS. And the second one is about the role in societal transformation. Now, the first speaker will be Brigitte Winkler-Komar, and she's from the Austrian Federal Ministry of Art and Culture, and she's there as head of the Department for Music and Performing Arts. And she will tell about the process of the fair practice in Austria. I also welcome Lisa Lang. She's from the Climate-KIC from EIT, and she's the Director of EU Affairs and a Policy Orchestrator. And I think we might know what that means, a Policy Orchestrator, after her presentation. I mean, I've never seen that title before anywhere. And she will educate us on the possibilities for the CCS to play a role in the future within this quite complex world of the KICs. But first, let's just hear Brigitte Winkler-Komar on fair practice in Austria. And I think she is online and live there. Ah, thank you. There she is. Yeah, you are there. Good morning. Can you see me? Yeah, we can hear you. And I'm very happy to have you at least here online. Please start your presentation. You're very welcome.
Yeah, please, can I ask the technicians to be so kind and share my PowerPoint presentation? First of all, I would like to say a warm welcome from Vienna. I'm very sorry that I can't be there physically. I intended to come to Brussels, but yeah, COVID and the difficult context made it impossible. So can you probably already see my presentation? Could you give me some feedback if you could? Yeah. Here it is. Wonderful. Okay, so I'm with you to give you a short overview over the Austrian Fairness Process that started in autumn 2020. Well, there are two main goals for this fairness process in Austria in the field of arts and culture. The first goal is to create more fairness in the sector of independent arts and culture. And of course, the second very important goal is to implement fair pay. Could you please proceed to the next slide? When you look at our government program from 2020 to 24, you can find a paragraph stating that the federal and the regional level are invited to negotiate a fair pay strategy. This is why we started the process at the end of 2020 and formed two major working groups. The first group was the working group Fairness, consisting of representatives by the regional and federal level, all from the area of art funding. And the second very important group was the Forum Fairness, including all main stakeholders of arts and culture in the field of independent arts and culture. Yeah, please proceed to the next next slide. What is important to know quite generally is in Austria, the main and primary competence for art funding lies with the regions. So the federal level is never able to negotiate something without the regions, which is a good thing. We are codependent on each other and we need to talk to each other, which is basically very, very good once you want to change something. When we started talking about fairness and fair pay, we asked the stakeholders to give us a lot of inputs. We asked them to give us an idea what they want to talk about, and they gave us really lots of information, which was really interesting. And we simply saw after a very short while at the end of 2020 that we need to broaden the field. We can't start by discussing fair pay exclusively. We need to respect the fact that fair pay is only possible if you discuss collateral topics that are really linked to the topic of fair pay. And we also understood that we need to take or undertake preparatory actions to be able to talk about fair pay. So one basic thing was we needed to tackle the legal question, and you all know this really present problem. The minimum fees that are being introduced by the stakeholders, they are not negotiated with someone, because the stakeholders, they basically stand for the employee part only, but there is no employer side. So they introduce minimum fees, but they are not negotiated. There is no collective bargaining in the free sector and the independent sector, as you know. So this is why we needed to have a lawyer, and we contracted an expert opinion to find out how can we deal with this minimum fees. Well, we got a very interesting paper back and also some solutions. So clear at this very moment, it's clear that the minimum fees cannot be mandatory within our funding programs, but we can give a hint to these minimum fees, and we can also the minimum fees are also, since the autumn of last year, by the way, they are one of many criteria you have to meet when you apply for funding at the ministry. But it's not a mandatory criterion, because legally it can't be at this very stage. But due to the measures taken or initiatives taken by the European Union, there might be less tension with EU competition law once European Union finds a different approach to this difficult topic. Well, one of the ideas coming from the stakeholders was also they invited us to say, let's talk about a fairness code or fair practice code. You might know the Dutch best practice. It's called the Fair Practice Code. It has been negotiated a couple of years ago in the Netherlands, and it was initiated by the stakeholders. In Austria, we followed a different approach because the stakeholders asked us to do that. For the last year now, we negotiated a fairness codex, which is about to be finished soon. And we invited the regional level, the federal level, and stakeholders, and also best practices. So only a couple of weeks ago, we had one of the final rounds, and we had best practices present, meaning we invited all the regions to come up with the idea which institution could be good for applying a fairness codex. And also, of course, we always had the stakeholders in the independent sector present at our negotiations. And we are currently about to finish this paper, and it will soon be presented. And the idea is that, for example, also very big institutions like the Austrian or the Vienna State Opera will apply this text and put it on its website. So this is also one of the measures we took within this broad framework of fairness in arts and culture. In September of last year, I mean, maybe one of you were even present or followed our symposium online. We had a very big international symposium in Vienna dealing with the topic of fairness, and we introduced many European best practices and examples. The keynote speaker was Catherine Magnan, who gave us a really excellent overview of the measures being taken by the EU currently. And there's also an OMC group dealing with, the topic of more fairness and the difficult question how to make payments fairer in the independent sector. And Austria is also part of this OMC group, which is a very important group for us. Well, one of the main preparatory actions for our fair pay focus group, and also within the fairness process was the fair pay gap study. We contracted this last spring, in spring 2021, and we developed a questionnaire with the stakeholders and with the regional and federal level, which was quite a difficult task because, you know, once you want to really know about payment and wages and fees in the independent sector, you need a lot of transparency, which is a challenge. But we, I think we came up with quite a good questionnaire, and we undertook the study, and the results have been presented in January 2021, so only a couple of weeks ago. And the main finding is that the gap on average, the fair pay gap on average in Austria is 21% of personnel expenses. But what does that mean? That does not mean that, for example, the federal level needs to cover exclusively these 21%. It means that within these 21%, you have one part that belongs to the regions, one part that belongs to the federal level, and also maybe one part that belongs to the applicants as well. But what it also showed, and what you will see later on when I discuss our pilot phase of fair pay is only possible if you look closely and really tailor-made to each and every applicant. You can't really say, okay, it's an average is 21%, so let's just use this percentage. This is completely impossible. You have to really find a very precise and detailed approach. Well, once the study was presented in January of this year, but the study is, by the way, online from the very first day, so full transparency here from our side. Once we had the study, we formed the focus group fair pay, which is, of course, the core of our fairness process. So we tried within our fairness process to really approach the topic of fair pay from very different sides. A very important topic is also, in order to have fair pay, you need to have the right contract behind every contract. You have to have the fair contracts and so on. And we found out that also big institutions in Austria may not always give out the right contracts to independent artists that come and cooperate within a project with a big institution. So there is still a lot to do. And we really saw that we have so many areas where we need to be fairer to make fair pay possible. Okay, please, next slide. So what we are doing since the end of January now in the ministry is we started a pilot phase of fair pay. And our state secretary, Andrea Meyer, could also negotiate 6.5 million euros more this year for only paying fair pay dedicated funding money. Yeah. Of course, we do hope that we will have this money on a long-term level, so also the next year and the year after that. And we do hope that, and I think the indication is that it might work out. But for this very year, we have 6.5 million more. To give you an idea how much that is art funding on the federal level in Austria is all in total maybe 500 million euros. And from these 500 million, you could say that approximately 55 million euros are given to the independent sector and to organizations who are not linked to collective agreements and who are not owned by the state or a region. So 55 million euros is our normal budget to give out to the independent sector in Austria. Now we have 6.5 million more. And what we do with this 6.5 million, I will tell you now, because this is what we created after looking at the study and talking to the stakeholders. So of course, as funding institutions, we give out contracts. And in these contracts, we have now very precise clauses dealing with fair pay. So what are we doing explicitly? In the funding agreements, we state that the grants are explicitly dedicated to fair pay measures. And the funds made available are intended to contribute to fairer payment within the organization. So at the first stage, now we are in the pilot phase, and we created some sort of calculation sheet. Every organization has to fill in, but this sheet now in the first step of this pilot fair pay strategy is not super precise, because we are currently also in the period where we negotiate our pilot phase with the stakeholders. We really need their feedback, but to really come up with a Simple solution. We started the pilot phase with an easy sheet they need to fill out, and it does not, for example, state every person in an organization by name and with the concrete wage or fees or whatever. So we have at the moment an easy approach, but during the next couple of weeks and months, we will negotiate a more precise fair pay strategy, because we need to get experience, and we need also to get the feedback from the stakeholders. And only next week we are going to have a big workshop with the stakeholders to give us first feedback. What did we do okay, what was not ideal, and so on. So we're currently really developing a fair pay strategy, because it's quite complex once you look at it on a detailed level. So, but one of our criteria is also that we ask the funded institution that those fees and or salaries that have a high fair pay gap are primarily taken into account. So what we do is we ask the institution to closely look at their own structure and ask them to create more fairness. With the additional money we give, they are asked to create more fairness. And the fair pay subsidy may only be used for existing jobs, not for the creation of new jobs. This is also something we are currently doing during this pilot phase. We know that this is probably not ideal, but it is a first step, because what we want to do is, at the moment, is we want to use this 6.5 million to create more fairness in existing structures. The next step will, of course, be to be more open and to also create more jobs or contracts within an organization. Okay, please proceed to the next slide. And then, of course, some funding areas of our big funding scheme are not included in the pilot phase because it simply doesn't make sense. For example, grants, wherever we give out fixed amounts. For example, an artist can apply for a 6 months grant simply to invest in their own creativity and work on their inspiration, and not in a concrete project. This is where we give out grants with a fixed sum, and this funding scheme is not included in the fair pay pilot phase. Also, organizations owned by the public sector, by the federal level, maybe the state or a big museum or museums or theaters in the regions in Austria, they are not included in the fair pay pilot phase because they are simply owned by the state, and we clearly assume that fair payment is in place. And not included are also organizations applying collective agreements. So where a collective agreement is in place, of course, it should not be talking about fair pay, because fair pay should be part of the collective agreement. Yeah, that's it so far from my side. Thank you for your attention. And now I'm awaiting your questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Brigitte. This is a very interesting contribution on this process. I think it's a very interesting discussion also for the future about should the government be paying for fair pay, or should the cultural institutions do that themselves? Should that be fair? But that's, I think, one of the discussions that's playing around in different countries. But thank you much for your contribution. And we hope to see you face to face again in the near future. I will now go to Lisa Lang. You're going to do your presentation, and I think there's a clicker for you. And well, I'm very curious to what you're going to tell us.
Thank you very much. Hello, good morning. It's still morning, right? You know? Okay. Okie dokie, let's see if that works. Where do I have to point? Ah, trying every direction.
It's not there yet.
Maybe it's a, is it a PlayStation?
Yes.
Okay, great. Hi. So my name is Lisa Lang. I have a really, my title, Orchestrator, I'm working on a lot of music memes on that, but it's kind of like it represents our mindset. Are we in a time continuum now? Okay. I have a lot of memes about Captain Janeway in Star Trek also, but that's a different story. Female leadership. Good. So just, to address your question about like what orchestrator mean, it's like, it's actually, walking the talk is like policy is all about like being a composer of different music instruments and bring them together in harmony, although this harmony coordinated also can be wonderful music. But that's actually how we at EIT Climate-KIC see policy. It's like we have to bring different voices and rhythms together to fight one common cause, and that's climate change. So, who are we? Also for you, like you creative people, if like you haven't heard anything about the European Institute for Technology, that is okay and normal, because the EIT kind of has been built without culture creative industries in mind, because that was before 2019, before the Commission said, hey, you exist, right? So yeah, moving forward. So the Climate-KIC is one of the oldest KICs, most senior KICs. KICs means, by the way, knowledge innovation community, right? Also, name is the game. We are focusing a lot on education. It's all about innovation, but innovation is not only about technology, right? We need also culture creative industries. We are learning new vocabularies, yes. But also, we as Climate-KIC, we are actually like the biggest agency on EU level to fight climate change. So we have the mandate from the Commission, so we are the activation agency, right? So like we are very much plugged into the bureaucracy of policy making, EU bubble, Brussels bubble, but we are actually there to implement and activate. So you can kind of see us as your green transition WordPress plugin, probably. That's the best way how to describe it. So, oh yeah, I have to do a little bit of name dropping with like numbers and figures and something like that. So in the last almost 12 years, we distributed over 4 billion euro in investing in startups, in events, to support the green transition, as we tell it. We have invested in a lot of startups. We run a whole series of education programs. Basically, feel free to go to the website, join on the newsletter, on our social media, because there's something coming up very quickly, and then something has changed. In January 2021, the new European Bauhaus program joined us. We have something what is called Cross-KICs, because we are not the only KIC in EIT. We are 8 in total. So we have food and mobility and energy and digital and raw materials. And, yeah. We actually have a culture creative KIC coming up. And a shout out to all of the consortiums which are applying, because the deadline is on the 23rd next week. So I hope you get a little bit of sleep, because it's quite massive. So the importance of that is that this culture creative KIC on EIT level will be the European innovation agency for culture and creative industries. It sounds big because it is. But it's also, again, see that in the context is like, that is a culture creative KIC within a system which hasn't been built for culture creative industries. It's not, it's understand the monster, fight the monster. It's not that it was against it. It was just like, because, it wasn't acknowledged yet. So we are in a transition phase in here. So in order to kind of like lay down the land and, teach internally also like how to deal with these people, we started a Cross-KIC, where Cross-KICs are where we all work together, all of the other KICs together on big projects. And one of them is the new European Bauhaus Cross-KIC. So this has started last year, and it's still active, and lots of programs coming up. So there's like another graphic. Our biggest flagship program is deep demonstration. I can talk for ages about that, but basically what we're doing is like we are teaming up with governments to help and support them in the green transition. We have one in Slovenia currently active and another one in Ireland coming up. So many more. So that's also a great opportunity to plug in culture creative industries and European Bauhaus in it. In the meantime, we have several grants where culture creative institutions, startups, individuals can apply. And this is kind of the overview, and very hot off the press, we are going to announce, this is actually, you are the first ones who hear it, because it even has been published yet on our website, even more important. Sign up to our newsletter, because we will announce it. End of this month, we will publish a call for hackathon hosts. So that means like for creative hubs, for universities who can host a hackathon. We have a series of climathons. We adapted. Now it's like NEP hackathons. So we are looking for hosts who can run a whole-on climathon with us in September this year. So there will be 6 EU hosts will be picked. And then we run it for 3-4 days. Our climathons are quite substantial, so we have a page for that. Feel free to check it out for research, you know. But that also means, like, for individuals, like, you know, gear up, because there will be within the EIT and the European Bauhaus for Culture and Creative Industries hackathon series. Yes, and there's money, by the way, also, you know. The other one also we just finished was our Ideation Award and our Community Booster, like all finished. But yay, we will do this over and over again. So at the New European Bauhaus Festival, for instance, we applied to participate so we can run our Ideation Awards ceremony, where we are celebrating innovative ideas in the context of green transition in the mindset of the New European Bauhaus. I practiced that this morning. So, the resources we have online already, also, like, I know it's like, you know, UX, still learning. Follow the hashtag on Twitter during the day. I will publish all of the links to all of the information. Feel free to like and retweet. So we have a program with the RMIT Australia together with RMIT Spain, where we published several New European Bauhaus workshops, which are very useful if you want to plug into our program. Follow the money, you know. So, also, if you want to, you know, we are here kind of like to build the bridges. My wonderful boss, Kirsten Dunlop, and we both have a design background. So we kind of like looking for the culture creative industries as agents of change to support our green transition and be our transition narrative partners. You know, policy usually feels a little bit like dry, but it actually can be a lot of fun if you gamify it a little bit. So this is what we are trying to do. So we are also trying to make our work accessible for the culture creative industries. That's what my email. I'm also like on Twitter, as you will notice. So feel free to engage. There is like, again, kind of see us as your green transition WordPress plugin, because we have a lot of material for the last 12 years in context of fighting climate change. On that also is, we actually joined the Pact for Skills as that WordPress plugin, not only for culture creative industries, but like all of our sectors. Just yesterday we talked with our aerospace and defense team. We have a space team inside EIT Climate-KIC, which is pretty cool. So I would like to give artists access to our to our Galileo space data. Wouldn't that be cool? Anyway, see, lots of ideas are there. Thank you so much for the invitation, and I'm looking forward to see you all again very, very soon.
Okay, thank you very much, Lisa. So there's a lot of opportunities coming up. Just one question: the creative kick, because that's they have to do their, their massive application next week. When will this be really up and running?
Yeah, I think we are all asking. So the thing is, because like a kick is quite a massive undertaking. So there is a lot of operations to behold. From experience with the other kicks, it actually really takes like 1 to 2 years, sometimes 3 years to get up and running operationally. From what I've heard out of the grapevine, it's like the ambition is like to be really hit the ground running and be active like within a year. But that's also why EIT started the Cross-KIC. So the communities don't have to wait to participate in programs.
Okay, so until then, the question is from you to us. Participate where you can now.
Yeah, it's also get familiar with this thing called EIT. It's to say it with the words of the wonderful Mal Rainey, the jazz legend. Here comes a music meme. Jazz is not about people knowing you. It's about you knowing people. And I think it's a really good definition for policy. So this is about, especially you, culture, creative industries, being a new sector. This is about also learning how the system we are in, which hasn't been built for you, how it works. So you can plug in, and we are one part of that system.
Yeah. Okay, so I mean, as far as I know, jazz is also knowing about the standards and then improvise.
Exactly. Can we high five on that? Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, but like that's exactly it. Is because yes, we need standards. In terms of climate change, there are like a lot of standards for sustainability and fight against climate change are actually made. So there is a very much a mechanical process on it. It's like if you learn an instrument, but also like once you understand the mechanics, then you can dance. Then you can orchestrate.
Okay, let's dance and not to orchestrate too much. Okay, thanks very much, Lisa. We're now coming to the end of this part of the program, and I give back the word to Dubravka, and I give you my mic.
Sorry, my mic got lost in action. But thank you very much. Really inspiring presentations. I think... both to Lisa and Brigitte, who joined us online, and it's really a shame she could not be here with us today. Just for the audience watching us online, just for you to know, all the recordings of this morning's sessions will be available later on, also on our website, in case anyone wants to look back, and the presentations will be shared with the participants. So now I think it's what we've been waiting for, the coffee break, the chance to kind of exchange and recap a little bit about what we've heard. And we're supposed to be back in 15 minutes, 1 o'clock, just for our online audience as well, who will be, 12 o'clock, who is waiting for us here online. So we have 15 minutes break, and then we're back for another very interesting panel with very interesting, inspiring speakers. Thank you.